Why can't I stop overthinking everything? Have you ever found yourself caught in a whirlwind of thoughts, asking yourself the same over and over again, as if the answers might suddenly appear if you just think hard enough? Maybe it's something small, like what you said to a friend, or something big, like a decision about your future. You go back and forth, analyze every possibility, imagine every outcome, and before you know it, hours have passed. But you still don't feel any closer to clarity or peace. This constant loop of thinking, doubting, and worrying is what we call overthinking, and it's more common than you might think. In fact, millions of people struggle with it daily, often feeling mentally drained, emotionally overwhelmed, and stuck in their own minds. Overthinking is not just a bad habit. It can feel like a prison made of your own thoughts. What's interesting is that overthinking often comes from a good place. You want to make the right decision, avoid mistakes, protect yourself from pain, or do your best in life. But when your mind never slows down, when every small issue becomes a giant mental puzzle, when fear speaks louder than trust, overthinking stops being helpful and starts becoming harmful. It creates anxiety about the future, guilt about the past, and confusion in the present. You may begin to second-guess your instincts, lose confidence in your choices, and feel like nothing is ever truly resolved. Even when things go well, your brain might say, "But what if?" And you're right back in that spiral again. It's like living with a constant background noise that you just can't shut off. Overthinking isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's usually a sign that your mind is overwhelmed, your heart is anxious, and your nervous system is in survival mode. Maybe you grew up in an environment where you had to be careful, alert, or cautious to feel safe. Maybe you've been through something painful that taught you to always look for what could go wrong. Or maybe no one ever taught you how to trust yourself, how to listen to your inner voice without fear. Whatever the reason, your brain has learned that thinking more might mean protecting more. But the truth is, overthinking doesn't protect you. It only pulls you further away from your peace. This journey we're about to take together is not just about understanding what overthinking is. It's about learning how to gently step out of it. It's about creating space in your mind so you can breathe, live, and move forward without fear. We'll explore why your mind does this, how it impacts your emotions and body, and most importantly, how you can begin to quiet the noise, make peace with uncertainty, and trust your own path again. The goal isn't to stop thinking, it's to stop drowning in thoughts. It's to stop living in your head so you can return to your life. One breath at a time, one small shift at a time, you can learn to free yourself from the grip of overthinking and step into a calmer, clearer, more confident you. Part 1. What is overthinking really? Overthinking is more than just thinking too much. It's when your thoughts turn into a never-ending cycle of doubt, fear, and what-if questions that don't actually lead to solutions. It's the habit of replaying events in your mind over and over, imagining different outcomes, or constantly worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. It's when your brain feels like it's stuck in overdrive, analyzing every word you said, every decision you made, and every possible scenario in the future, most of which never come true. Overthinking often feels like you're trying to solve problems, but instead of feeling clearer or calmer, you end up feeling more confused, anxious, and mentally drained. It can come in two main forms: rumination and worry. Rumination is when you obsess about the past, like replaying a conversation and beating yourself up for how you handled it. Worry is when your thoughts race ahead to the future, imagining everything that could go wrong, even if there's no real reason to expect it will. Overthinking can be sneaky, too. It often disguises itself as being responsible, thoughtful, or prepared. You might tell yourself, "I'm just trying to make sure I do the right thing," or "I want to be careful," or "I'm thinking ahead." But what starts as a good intention quickly turns into a stressful habit. Instead of helping you act, overthinking keeps you stuck. You become so caught up in the details that you can't make decisions, and so afraid of getting things wrong that you do nothing at all. It steals your time, your energy, your sleep, and your peace of mind. And worst of all, it creates distance between you and the present moment. Because while your body may be here, your mind is lost in a maze of past regrets or future fears. So what is overthinking, really? It's a mental habit rooted in fear, fed by uncertainty, and powered by a lack of self-trust. It happens when your brain feels unsafe and tries to protect you by constantly scanning for danger, emotional, social, or even imagined. It's not a sign that you're weak, broken, or incapable. It's a sign that your mind is working overtime to keep you safe, even when there's no real threat. Understanding this is the first step to healing. When you begin to see that overthinking isn't who you are, but rather a pattern you've learned, you can begin to gently untangle yourself from it. You can start to build awareness, practice self-compassion, and retrain your mind to find calm in the present. Because the truth is, you don't need more thinking. You need more being, more trust, and more peace. And it starts right here. Part 2. The root causes of overthinking. To truly understand why we overthink, we have to look beneath the surface. Because overthinking doesn't just happen for no reason. It often grows out of deeper emotional patterns, past experiences, and hidden fears that live quietly inside us. One of the biggest root causes of overthinking is fear. Fear of failure, fear of being judged, fear of making the wrong choice, or fear of not being good enough. When we're afraid of what might happen, our minds go into overdrive, trying to predict and control every possible outcome to avoid pain or disappointment. Another powerful root cause is perfectionism, the belief that we must always get things right and that making mistakes is unacceptable. This pressure can make even the smallest decisions feel overwhelming because no outcome ever feels good enough. We start to second, guess everything. What if I mess up? What if people think I'm not smart enough? What if I regret this later? So instead of acting, we freeze in thought. For many people, childhood experiences also play a major role. If you grew up in a home where you had to be careful, overly responsible, or constantly worried about upsetting others, your brain might have learned to stay alert as a way to feel safe. Maybe you were criticized a lot, so you started analyzing every move to avoid being wrong. Or perhaps you felt like you had to earn love and approval, So now you overthink everything to avoid letting anyone down. Lack of self-trust is another deep root. When we've been told, directly or indirectly, that our thoughts, feelings, or decisions can't be trusted, we begin to doubt ourselves. We outsource our confidence to other people's opinions or try to find the perfect answer in our minds because we don't believe we already have the wisdom within us. In our modern world, constant stimulation and information overload also fuel overthinking. We are bombarded by social media, news, opinions, and endless choices every single day. This makes our brains feel like they're always on, trying to keep up and make sense of everything. We're surrounded by messages that say we have to be more, do more, achieve more. And if we're not careful, our minds internalize that pressure and spin it into mental chaos. Even emotional wounds like heartbreak, betrayal, or failure can leave scars that lead to overthinking, because we subconsciously want to protect ourselves from feeling that pain again. Understanding these root causes helps us see that overthinking isn't just a bad habit. It's often a survival strategy we develop to cope with uncertainty, pain, or pressure. But once we become aware of what's underneath the surface, we can begin to heal. We can begin to show compassion to ourselves instead of judgment. We can recognize that overthinking isn't our fault, but it is something we can gently change. And in that understanding, we take the first brave step toward freedom. Part 3. The emotional toll of overthinking. Overthinking doesn't just live in the mind, it slowly seeps into your heart, your energy, and your sense of self-worth, leaving behind emotional exhaustion that's hard to describe. At first, it might feel like you're just being careful, trying to make good decisions or understand a situation. But over time, that constant stream of thoughts begins to wear you down. You might start to feel anxious all the time, as if something bad is always about to happen. Your emotions become tangled, and you can't tell whether you're reacting to what's real or just to what you fear. Overthinking creates a storm of self-doubt, making you question your choices, your value, even your identity. It whispers things like, "What if you're not good enough?" Or, "What if they don't really like you?" Or, "What if you make the wrong move and regret it forever?" And those thoughts start to shape how you see yourself and your world. Emotionally, overthinking makes you feel stuck. You replay past conversations, dwell on mistakes, and imagine future disasters, none of which you can change or control. This can lead to chronic stress, irritability, and even sadness or depression. You may begin to feel overwhelmed by small tasks because your brain is already overworked with imaginary problems. You lose the ability to enjoy the present moment because you're constantly preparing for what could go wrong. Even when nothing is wrong, your nervous system remains on high alert, like it's bracing for impact. Over time, this drains your emotional reserves. You become tired, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. Relationships suffer too because overthinking can lead to miscommunication, unnecessary conflict, or emotional distance. You might pull away because you're afraid of being misunderstood or hurt again. Worse still, overthinking can make you feel alone. It traps you in your head, where your thoughts echo louder than the voices of the people who care about you. You may not want to talk about what's going on because it feels silly, or because you've convinced yourself that no one else would understand. But the truth is, many people understand this pain, even if they don't talk about it. You are not the only one carrying this weight. Recognizing the emotional toll of overthinking is important because it helps you realize that this isn't just a small issue to brush aside. It affects your peace, your happiness, and your connection to others. But here's the good news. Once you see the damage it's causing, you also open the door to healing. You begin to understand that your mind needs rest, your heart needs gentleness, and your soul needs freedom from fear. And that freedom begins with awareness, self-compassion, and the courage to choose peace over perfection, trust over fear, and presence over worry. Part 4. How to gently start healing. Healing from overthinking doesn't mean shutting your thoughts off like a switch. It means learning to relate to your thoughts differently with patience, compassion, and care. The first step toward healing is awareness. Begin by simply noticing when you're overthinking without judging yourself. Instead of saying, "Why can't I stop this?" Try saying, "I notice I'm caught in a thought spiral right now." This simple shift helps you step outside the storm rather than getting swept away by it. Once you notice the pattern, gently pause. Take a deep breath. Come back to your body in the present moment. Ask yourself, what do I actually know right now? What am I feeling? These questions anchor you in reality rather than fear. One powerful tool in the healing process is self-compassion. Learning to speak to yourself like you would a dear friend. Instead of criticizing yourself for thinking too much, try saying, "It's okay that I feel unsure right now. I'm doing my best." This small act of kindness begins to soften the harsh inner voice that feeds overthinking. Next, begin to set boundaries with your mind. When a thought keeps looping without helping, gently tell yourself, "This thought isn't useful right now. I'll come back to it later if I need to." Then redirect your attention to something grounding, like taking a walk, journaling, or doing something with your hands. Healing also means reconnecting with your body, because overthinking pulls you into your head and disconnects you from the physical world. Gentle practices like deep breathing, stretching, or simply noticing the feeling of your feet on the floor can help regulate your nervous system and calm your inner storm. You don't have to do everything at once. In fact, trying to fix overthinking quickly often makes it worse. True healing is slow, steady, and rooted in self-trust. You might also try writing your thoughts down, not to analyze them, but to release them. Getting them out of your head and onto paper helps create space inside you. Remember, overthinking thrives in silence and self-judgment. So don't be afraid to talk about it with someone you trust, whether a friend, family member, or therapist. Naming your thoughts out loud can instantly reduce their power. Most importantly, know that healing isn't about never overthinking again. It's about learning how to gently return to yourself each time you do. It's about replacing fear with curiosity, replacing control with surrender, and learning to trust that you are strong enough to face uncertainty without needing to think your way through everything. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to feel unsure. You are allowed to let go. With each small, loving step, you are building a quieter, kinder inner world, and that is how true healing begins. Part 5. Shifting from overthinking to inner peace. Moving from overthinking to inner peace isn't about forcing yourself to stop thinking. It's about learning how to choose peace, moment by moment, even while your thoughts are still there. It starts with recognizing that peace doesn't mean the absence of all thoughts, but the ability to remain calm and grounded even when your mind is active. When you catch yourself spiraling into overthinking, pause and ask, is this thought helping me feel safe, or is it making me feel more afraid? This simple question can break the automatic cycle and invite you back into awareness. From there, gently guide your attention to the present. Focus on your breath, the feeling of your body, or the sounds around you. These are your anchors. They help remind your nervous system that you're not in danger. You're simply caught in a habit of worry that no longer serves you. Peace begins when you stop trying to control every outcome and start trusting that you can handle what life brings, even if it's uncertain or uncomfortable. One of the most powerful ways to shift from overthinking to peace is to practice acceptance. That doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means letting go of the fight with what is. Overthinking thrives on resistance. I have to find the perfect answer. I can't let this happen, or I shouldn't feel this way. But inner peace says, this is how I feel right now, and that's okay. It says, I may not have all the answers, but I don't need to figure everything out at once. When you accept the moment as it is, you stop trying to solve it with your mind and start living it with your heart. Another important shift is learning to let go of the need for certainty. Overthinking tries to protect you by finding guarantees, but peace grows when you learn to walk forward even without knowing what will happen. You begin to rely not on perfect plans, but on inner strength, faith, and the quiet confidence that you'll find your way, one step at a time. Building inner peace is like building a muscle. It takes practice, patience, and gentleness. Simple habits like daily mindfulness, spending time in nature, journaling your thoughts, or even just slowing down your day can create space for peace to grow. Speaking kindly to yourself is essential, too. The voice in your head that says, I can't stop thinking, can be replaced with one that says, I'm learning to find calm and I'm proud of myself. With time, the mental noise begins to quiet. You begin to notice the small moments of stillness, the pauses between your thoughts, the gentle hum of life outside your worries. That's peace. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And the more you listen, the more you'll find that peace was never lost. It was simply waiting for you underneath the noise, ready to be heard the moment you chose to let go. Part 6. You are not your thoughts. One of the most powerful realizations you can have on the journey to overcoming overthinking is this: you are not your thoughts. For many of us, overthinking feels so overwhelming because we believe every thought we have must be important, true, or meaningful. We get lost in our minds, tangled up in fears, what-ifs, regrets, and imagined futures, without realizing that thoughts are just mental events, not facts, not reality, and not a reflection of who we truly are. A thought can pop into your mind like, I'm not good enough, or something bad is going to happen. And if you believe it without question, it begins to shape how you feel and act. But the truth is, not every thought deserves your attention. Some are just echoes of past wounds, old beliefs or protective patterns your brain created to keep you safe. When you begin to notice your thoughts as something you experience rather than something you are, you take the first step toward emotional freedom. Think of your thoughts like passing clouds in the sky. They come, they shift, they move on. But you are the sky, vast, steady, and unchanging beneath all that movement. Just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean it's who you are. You might think, I always mess things up, but that doesn't make you a failure. It means you're having a difficult moment, one that needs compassion, not judgment. Learning to observe your thoughts without getting pulled into them is called mindfulness, and it's one of the most effective tools to reduce overthinking. You can begin by simply pausing and saying to yourself, I notice I'm having a thought that, instead of, I am, for example, I notice I'm having a thought that I might mess this up, instead of, I will mess this up. That shift in language creates space. It reminds you that you are the observer, the awareness behind the thought, not the thought itself. When you understand that you are not your thoughts, you stop being controlled by them. You stop chasing them, fearing them, or trying to fix everyone. You begin to trust that it's okay to have doubts and still move forward. It's okay to feel uncertain and still take action. You can have anxious thoughts and still live a peaceful life, because those thoughts don't define your worth, your identity, or your future. They are simply noise, and you have the power to decide how much attention you give them. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but with practice, it becomes easier to notice the difference between the voice of fear and the voice of truth within you. The more you return to your inner stillness, the more clearly you'll hear that truth, and that truth says you are more than your fears, bigger than your worries, and braver than you realize. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. And that awareness is where your peace, power, and freedom truly begin. Part 7. Questioning the Mind Gently. One of the most healing practices for overcoming overthinking is learning how to question your mind, not with force or judgment, but with kindness and curiosity. When we overthink, we often accept our thoughts as absolute truth, without ever asking where they came from or whether they actually make sense. Our minds can say things like, you're going to fail, or everyone is judging you, or you're not good enough. And without realizing it, we start to build our emotions and actions around these unchallenged beliefs. But what if we paused and gently asked, is that really true? Or do I know this for a fact? Or is this just fear talking? This kind of soft questioning doesn't attack the thought. It simply shines a little light on it. And often when you bring light to a fearful thought, it starts to lose its power. The goal is not to argue with your thoughts or try to erase them completely, but to explore them with the same tenderness you'd offer a friend who's feeling afraid or unsure. Questioning the mind gently means creating space between you and your thoughts. It means noticing when your brain jumps to conclusions, makes harsh judgments, or predicts the worst, and instead of reacting, you pause and reflect. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me feel calm and confident? Where did I learn to think this way? What would I tell a loved one who had this same thought? These questions turn your inner critic into a compassionate guide. You start to realize that many of the thoughts driving your overthinking are not truths. They're stories you've been telling yourself, often out of habit or past pain. And like any story, they can be rewritten. This gentle inquiry helps you loosen the grip of perfectionism, fear, and self-doubt. That you don't have to believe everything your mind tells you. It's important to approach this process with patience. At first, your mind may resist. It's used to running the show, trying to keep you safe through overanalysis. But the more you practice this gentle questioning, the more you'll start to feel your mental space open up. You'll begin to feel less controlled by your thoughts and more connected to your deeper wisdom. And in that space, clarity begins to grow, not because you forced it, but because you invited it in with kindness. Healing overthinking is not about being harder on yourself. It's about being softer. It's about meeting your thoughts like waves, noticing them, questioning them, and letting them pass without letting them pull you under. Over time, this practice becomes a powerful tool for building inner calm, self-trust, and emotional freedom. Because when you stop believing every thought that enters your mind, you make room to listen to the quieter, more loving voice within, the voice that leads you back to peace. Part 8. Coming home to the present. One of the most powerful ways to free yourself from the grip of overthinking is to gently come back to the present moment, again and again, like returning home. Overthinking pulls you into the past, making you replay what you said, what happened, or what went wrong. Or it drags you into the future, making you worry about what could happen, what might go wrong, or what you can't control. But the truth is, the only place life is truly happening is right here, right now. The present moment is the doorway to peace, clarity, and healing. But when we're stuck in our minds, we forget how to walk through that door. Coming home to the present doesn't mean you force yourself to feel happy or clear all the time. It simply means you return your attention to what is real in this moment. Your breath, your body, the sounds around you, the feeling of your feet on the ground. These small sensory anchors can bring your mind out of the storm and into the calm. Even something as simple as saying, "Right now I am okay," or "I am safe in this moment," can help your nervous system slow down and your thoughts soften. Overthinking often happens because we believe the present moment isn't enough, that we must go back to fix something or look ahead to prepare for every possible outcome. But the truth is, the present is the only place you can act, breathe, rest, and truly live. When you come back to now, you begin to reclaim your life, not the life in your head, but the life in your hands. You start to notice the beauty around you, the warmth of sunlight, the taste of your food, the kindness in a smile, the feeling of your own heart beating. These moments may seem small, but they are sacred. They remind you that peace isn't something far away. It's something you can return to, one breath at a time. Coming home to the present also helps you build self-trust because you stop trying to figure everything out at once and start handling life one moment at a time, which is all you ever need to do. At first, your mind might resist. It might try to pull you back into overthinking, convincing you that you'll lose control if you stop analyzing. But with gentle practice, you'll begin to feel a new kind of strength, the kind that comes not from over-preparing, but from being fully here. You'll realize that most of the fears in your mind don't exist in the present moment. They live in what-ifs and should-haves. But the present holds what is real, what is possible, and what is enough. And every time you choose to return to this moment, you are choosing peace over panic, clarity over chaos, and connection over control. So when you feel yourself spinning in thought, place a hand on your heart, take a slow breath, and remind yourself, I am here now. I am safe now. This moment is my home. Part 9, a loving reminder. If you've made it this far in the journey of understanding your overthinking, here is a loving reminder you might need to hear. You are not alone. Overthinking is not a personal failure. It is a sign that your mind has been working overtime, trying to prepare you, trying to make sense of a world that often feels uncertain. You've carried so much in silence, worry, self-doubt, guilt, fear, and yet, through it all, you've kept going. That in itself is a quiet form of courage. It's easy to be hard on yourself, to say, why can't I just stop thinking like this? But healing doesn't come from shame or pressure. It comes from understanding, gentleness, and choosing to treat yourself with the kindness you've always deserved. Every time you notice your thoughts spiraling, and every time you choose to pause, breathe, and return to the moment, you are doing the work. You are unlearning years of mental habits. You are healing, even if it's slower than you'd like. Please remember that your thoughts do not define you, your worries do not predict your future, and your worth is not measured by how perfectly you handle life. You were never meant to figure everything out in your head before living it. You were meant to feel, to try, to learn, to grow. You don't need all the answers to move forward. You just need a little trust in yourself and a lot of grace. There will still be days when your mind gets noisy, when doubt creeps in, when you fall back into old patterns. And that's okay. Those days aren't signs of failure. They're part of the process. What matters most is that you keep choosing love over fear, progress over perfection, and presence over panic. You are stronger than your thoughts, wiser than your fears, and more capable than you know. Let this be your reminder. You don't have to carry the weight of every thought. You don't have to fix everything in your mind before you deserve peace. You are allowed to rest, to breathe, to begin again. Even in the midst of overthinking, there is still beauty within you, still hope ahead of you, and still a quiet strength guiding you home to yourself. Keep going. You're doing better than you think. Closing words. As we come to the end of this journey, let these closing words wrap around your heart like a gentle blanket. You are not alone in this, and there is nothing wrong with you. Overthinking is something so many people carry in silence, believing they're the only ones whose minds feel like a maze of endless questions, doubts, and fears. But the truth is, overthinking is not a flaw. It is a habit, a pattern, a response your brain has learned to protect you from pain, uncertainty, and failure. It's something you picked up because you care deeply, because you've been hurt, because you want to do your best. And while it may have served you in the past, you are now learning that it doesn't have to control your life anymore. The fact that you've taken the time to reflect, to understand, and to begin this healing process shows how ready you are for change. And not a loud, dramatic change, but a quiet, gentle one that begins deep inside. The decision to choose peace, even when your mind races. The courage to trust yourself even when you feel unsure. The patience to begin again, even on hard days. You've learned that overthinking doesn't make you weak. It means your mind is alert, your heart is sensitive, and your desire to get things right is strong. But you've also seen that chasing every thought only creates more confusion, not clarity. True peace doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from feeling safer, from trusting deeper, from letting go. It comes from remembering that your thoughts are not your truth, and you don't have to believe everything your mind tells you. You've discovered that healing begins with awareness, continues with self-compassion, and blossoms through gentle, consistent practice. You are capable of shifting from chaos to calm, from fear to faith, from mental noise to inner stillness. And it doesn't happen overnight, but every time you pause, breathe, and return to the present moment, you are planting seeds of peace inside yourself. So take this with you. You don't have to solve everything. You don't need to control every outcome. You don't need to think your way through every situation to be okay. All you need to do is stay connected to yourself, listen with kindness, and take the next small step forward. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be unsure. You are allowed to live with a quieter mind and a more open heart. You are worthy of peace, not someday, but right now. And every time you forget, come back to these words and remind yourself of the truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who rises above them, the one who chooses love, and the one who is finally learning to live free.